What's going on, guys? MariK here, and today we're going to be taking a look at what is arguably the best Pokemon variant that we have gotten since the X and Y era with Mega Evolutions. Paradox Pokemon have been such a huge success in Scarlet and Violet, whether it be in the fan base or just in competitive. They dominate in VGC. Well, some of them do anyways, and some of them dominate in the design aspect a little more than others. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Paradox Pokemon and ranking how good they look. So first up on the list we have Great Tusk from Pokemon Scarlet, and I can say this one is an S tier for me. When I was debating between choosing Pokemon Scarlet or Pokemon Violet, Violet was going to be my choice because it's my favorite color, and I actually liked the cover art Pokemon a little bit more. But what really sold me on Pokemon Scarlet was the ancient Paradox Pokemon. When you compare Great Tusk to its counterpart in Iron Tusk, it's such a better design. Like, it actually looks like a prehistoric version of Donphan. It's so just awe-inspiring. Whoever created this design seriously needs a fucking raise because it is so good, and I don't think I have appreciated a Pokemon this hard in quite a long time. Having to go against this thing and seeing it for the very first time in the fucking desert while going around and exploring Paldea was just awe-inspiring. This thing is an S hands fucking down. Even in the competitive world, this thing is a fucking S. Up next, we've got Screamtail, our Jigglypuff Paradox Pokemon, and again, it's a great design. It's gonna go in A tier for me. It takes a good design like Jigglypuff, and then while it doesn't put as much of a artistic spin on it like Great Tusk does, it sure as hell makes Jigglypuff a much scarier Pokemon. The way this Pokemon's facial expressions change, the way its animations are in battle, and it's a really fun Pokemon to even use in the games, even though it's not, it doesn't hit that very hard compared to something like Great Tusk, but it is a really good support Pokemon, and it's a really just nice design overall. Then up next we got Brute Bonnet, and I don't hate this thing. It's the Paradox form of Amongus, which I'm not the biggest fan of Amongus, mainly because I got tired of clicking Pokeballs in Black and White and then being Fungus and Amongus. That always irritated the shit out of me. But Amongus is a great Pokemon as far as competitive usage. Design-wise, he's just okay. This one's kind of the same thing. It's like the original Amongus design, except it's a little more fierce. So they're kind of going off of like the prehistoric. Obviously plants were more dangerous back then, or I don't know, but it looks cool. It's just not as it's just a giant mushroom. That's really all it is. It's like they did a good job designing it to make it look more than regular Amongus, but there's only so much that they could really do with it. Up next, we got Flutterman, which is the Paradox version of Misdreavus, and I really like this thing. I think it's a good A-tier Pokemon. If we're going by competitive, it's definitely up there in S-tier, but design-wise, I don't really care so much for Misdreavus. This is a very cool spin of that design, and while I don't know if I like it more than Miss Magius, I do like it a lot more than the Pokemon that the design originated from. And it actually looks, again, like something that you would probably see back then, because it's a little more wild, if that makes much sense. Then we've got Slitherwing, which is our Paradox version of Volcarona. It's going to go in B tier, I think. It's not a bad design. It's just kind of awkward that it is a moth. Like Volcarona, except it just doesn't fly, it crawls around. I mean, it slithers around, but it still has its wings, it just looks like a Volcarona that's just kind of landed and just chose not to get back up. It's not a bad design, but it's just not a whole lot different. Then when we talk about different, we got Sandyshocks, and I absolutely love this thing. I'm putting it in S tier, and I don't care how many people that upsets, or how many people think that's ridiculous. First of all, it's Magneton, which I have a special appreciation for Magneton, but then it's so much more than that. And it's really wild watching him the way he walks. It's a cool design. It's a cool spin on a Pokemon that you really couldn't do a whole lot with because it is just, magnets and screws and shit. But it's a cool spin on what the original design was. Then we're getting into the Paradox Pokemon from Pokemon Violet, and Iron Treads here is going to go in A tier. Like I said, he's a great Pokemon too. Both it and Great Tusk being designed off of Donphan, and while this one kind of keeps more along the lines the shape of Donphan, whereas Great Tusk took and expanded upon it and made it much more of a behemoth, this is more just like a mechanical iteration of Donphan, so it keeps kind of the same silhouette, which isn't a bad thing. It does look cool, and it does look like a mechanical Donphan would, but it can't compare with Great Tusk's, prehistoric design. Then we've got Iron Bundle, the Delibird, and I don't know. I don't hate its design. I guess we'll put it in B tier because it's really not a whole lot different from Delibird. Again, it just looks like a Robo Delibird, which it's kind of goofy for them to use a Pokemon like Delibird, but I guess in some point you can't keep using the same Pokemon over and over again, and this kind of gave Delibird fans, something different. And this thing's good, so for people who like Delibird but realize that the original is just really not good to use, this thing is fucking phenomenal. Super fast, hits super hard, frail as a duck, probably as frail as the original one, if not more. But design-wise, there's not a whole lot to say as far as how much they've really changed with it. Iron Hands, on the other hand, is a better Makuhita design, in my opinion. I think it's an A tier. I was not really a big Makuhita fan, but somehow turning it into a machine makes it a better design for me. I think the typing of it being electric is a little odd, but other than that, I think it's just a decent design. It's a better design than the original, which is, I guess, better in my opinion. Then we got Iron Jugulus, and this thing, I don't know. I think it's a B tier. I didn't really like Hydreigon to begin with. Out of all the dragons that we had, we had Dragonite, and then we got Salamence, and then we got Garchomp, and then we had Haxorus. And I prefer Haxorus, and we had Haxorus and we had Druddigon. Two dragon forms that I would much rather have than Hydreigon. Not to mention, evolves at level 64, what the fuck? That's not even the point. While this does look like a better Hydreigon to me, because adding the mechanical aspect of being a machine made it actually look better than the original, similar to the Iron Delibird, but it's still Hydreigon at its core, and it's not the best design to me, but it gets a B, I suppose. Then we got Iron Moth, which is the other variant of Volcarona. Donphan, I suppose I understand why it got a future and a ancient form, because they are the ones that you encounter in the story, in the actual gameplay. Iron Moth and Slitherwing you don't, so I'm not sure why Volcarona got its own past and future forms, but it's a pretty cool design. I actually like it a lot better than regular Volcarona. Its idle animation is really cool too, where the wings kind of almost shuffle through each other with their movement. It's in a weird way, it's a more lively animation than the one we have. It just kind of like, it floats, but it doesn't really do a whole lot of flapping with its wings, whereas this one at least kind of like cycles through an animation with each of the wings. It's cool. It's a cool design. I like it, regardless of whether or not the wings look like Dorito chips. Then we've got Iron Thorns, the Paradox Tyranitar. This one is an easy A for me. I almost want to put it in S tier, because I do think it looks that cool. I'm gonna leave it in A tier, but it's seriously like an A+, or like an A++. I love the design to this so much. This was the one that hurt me the most about choosing Pokemon Scarlet, because I knew I wasn't gonna get this Paradox Pokemon, and I have one, so that I can complete the Pokedex, but like I don't have anybody to play with to hunt it so that I can get a shiny one, which is a shame, because it's shiny. Well, like all the other Paradox Futures forms, their shinies are all just like straight chrome, which would look awesome on this Pokemon. It's a shame that he's not great to use, because the design is just so fucking good. The green is nice and vibrant. I love this Pokemon so much. The design is just awesome. Then we got Roaring Moon, which again, another Pokemon with a great design. I'm going to put him in A tier. He literally took everything I hated about Mega Salamence and made it a good fucking design. It turned the fucking like giant Batarang that was on its back into actual wings. It looks more like an intimidating dragon. The color scheme just works better. Everything about this Paradox Pokemon is just so much better than the original. I was not a Salamence fan at all, and initially I wasn't that big on this Pokemon, but then after hunting for the shiny and then using it in double battles and stuff, it's so fun to use, and the design has just really fucking grown on me. Another really fantastically done design, Iron Valiant, is also going up there in A tier. I would say, I guess this is also another one that I was a little bummed about not being able to get. Not as much as Iron Thorns, but this hybrid between Gallade and Gardevoir in a future form, the face looks intimidating. He's got this cool ass weapon. He's got the cool outfit. Like, he just looks really fucking cool. It's a shame that he's basically a glass cannon, so even if you did choose to use him, you wouldn't get to see him for very long, but really fucking cool design on, otherwise, again, Pokemon that, while I wasn't a big Gardevoir fan, I liked Gallade, and I really liked Mega Gallade, and this just was like Mega Gallade. Then we got Kidon, the box legend for Pokemon Scarlet. I'm not big on his design. I'm going to put him in B tier. The fact that Kidon and Miraidon are Paradox versions of Cyclizar is just fucking wild, because that Pokemon, I hate it. I hate seeing it run around. The fact that that's supposed to be like a method of travel for all the people in Paldea. I mean, at least this Pokemon looks better than Cyclizar. I do like all the like feathers and stuff on him. Makes him look cool. It's just when he's in motorbicycle form that I don't like the design as much. Same thing with Miraidon. I'm going to put him in B tier as well. He's got a really cool design. I was initially much more fond of Miraidon than Kidon, but Kidon's design really grew on me throughout the story of Scarlet and Violet. But again, while this one actually turns into a motorbicycle and you actually ride around on it and uses the wheels, it makes it a little better, because, you know, it's actually using the wheels to drive around, whereas Kidon's like, hey, I've got these giant wheel-looking sacks, but they're not really wheels, so I'm gonna run. And because I haven't played Violet, I don't know how much I actually prefer the riding movement and animation with Miraidon, but as far as actual, like, Paradox designs, they don't stand up to what we have up there in A tier and S tier for me. Now we're going to move into the DLC Paradox Pokemon, starting with Walking Wake, the Paradox Suicune. Suicune was my favorite, always has been my favorite of the 3 Johto beasts. And I don't feel like this is a better version of Suicune, but I do really like it, so it's going to go into A tier. Turning Suicune from this majestic looking creature with really like fluid movements into what is essentially a giant velociraptor. Like, seriously, this thing's stature compared to your trainer in Scarlet and Violet, it's fucking huge. It's much more intimidating than a regular Suicune, but I don't like the design more than a regular Suicune. Then we got Iron Leaves, which is the Paradox Virizion. It's not a bad design, and again, I do like it better than Virizion. I'm going to say B+. I'm going to say B+, because I do like the design. I do like seeing the really shiny green, which is part of what I like about Iron Thorn so much. But it's also Virizion. And while I did like Virizion more than Terrakion, it was always like a really... It was a little gap above Terrakion, but a very large gap under Cobalion as far as the 3 Swords of Justice. Still a nice design, but this fucker also ran away from me the instant I caught it, so it's going to go in B tier. Then we've got the first of the new Pokemon from Indigo Disc, the ones that Pokemon kept secret from us until the very end, and it's Gouging Fire. It's going in S tier. This Paradox Entei, this king of the Entei, is an absolutely amazing design. It took Entei's design, which was already really regal and imposing, and made it better. He's got these sharper claws, the spikes on his like back are bigger, and then he's got this regal crown, these horns that almost is like the top of the head of a Triceratops, except he didn't turn into a dinosaur. He literally turned into a prehistoric king of giant lion kind. Like, this design, I love it so fucking much, and it feels really weird to say that it's better than Suicune, but it's only better than Paradox Suicune. Then we've got Raging Bolt, the Paradox Raikou. It's going to go in A tier. It's definitely my least favorite of the 3, but it did follow in the design of prehistoric creatures. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I feel like Entei really does encapsulate that like Triceratops design. So we've got like that. We've got Walking Wake, which is like a Velociraptor / Tyrannosaurus kind of design. And then here with Raging Bolt, it's more like a Brontosaurus kind of design, which is really cool. And I like that they kind of did that with the trio. That's why I prefer the ancient Paradox forms to the future ones, because they're so inspired in their designs from creatures of the ancient past, whereas all of the ones from the future are just futuristic and they're made to look metal and robotic. And while the designs aren't bad, I mean, you can't top these prehistoric designs. Then we've got Iron Boulder, the Paradox Terrakion, and again, it's a cool design. I actually like it better than regular Terrakion, I think. So I'm gonna put him in B tier though, because while it isn't bad, it's not super great either. It doesn't have the inspired design that some of the other Pokemon do, and I understand it's because when they make the future Paradox forms, again, they're limited to making them look metal and robotic and futuristic, but it doesn't allow for as much creativity as like what we saw with, you know, Walking Wake, Raging Bolt, Gouging Fire. It's so limited, but it's good. They've done great with where they could go. They just couldn't go outside of the box enough. Then lastly, we have Iron Crown, the Paradox Cobalion. I'm going to put this one up in A tier. I don't know if I'd say he's a high A tier or a lower A tier, but I like the design. I always preferred Cobalion over the others. I feel like I caught Cobalion first in black and white. I don't think that really has much of an impact on it. It was the first one I caught, but also it's just like, I don't know, something about the design just looked better. The blue and the silver with some gold accents. And then here, it's the same thing, except he's a machine. And it looks better than the other two in a way that I can't really place. I really like the blue, which I really like the orange on Iron Boulder and the green on Iron Leaves, but as a whole design, Cobalion just has, again, he's got that regal design that Entei has, that, like, he doesn't need to look imposing because he has this, you know, this design that just exudes it's almost like nobility, like an air of confidence that he doesn't have to be, you know, a threatening Pokemon. And unfortunately, that's all we have for the Paradox Pokemon. We don't have a whole lot. I'm kind of hoping we'll get more, but since we did get both of the DLCs now, I don't know that we're going to get any more. And I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised I didn't even put any below B tier. I thought I was going to. I mean, I pretty much knew from the beginning the S tier was going to be how the S tier is. But I'm kind of surprised that as I was going through this list, I was like, wow, the Paradox Pokemon were just great designs. Like, we get a lot of good Mega Pokemon designs, but a good bit of them fell flat. We had some good regional designs, but they fell flat. Even Gigantamax, I admitted we had some good designs, but not like this. Like, Paradox Pokemon are just, even the bad ones are still good. And then the good ones are really fucking good. So I'm hoping that we'll get more Paradox designs in the future. I highly doubt we will, but who knows. I wouldn't mind seeing Paradox forms for the legendary birds of Kanto. And honestly, at that point, I would love if they did that just for us Gen 1 fans and do both prehistoric and future forms for them, just because I think those Pokemon could look pretty fucking dope as both. So, anyway, that's enough rambling about this. I really do like the Paradox Pokemon. I think they did a great job, and I am happy to see how well a lot of them can do in the competitive format. Hopefully, we didn't offend anybody with this list. I know the first one went right into the S tier, but it's the first one in the Pokedex, so that's just the list we were following. If your list is similar to ours, or very different, or if you think we made absolutely ridiculous placements with any of them, feel free to let me know in those comments down below, and perhaps we'll have a civil conversation about it.